and I'm your host today. So today is our Mother's Day special, and we shall be discussing a very important and interesting topic, which is dealing with societal pressure. And we have a few guests with us today, but before we do some introductions, I'd like our pastor to usher us in with a word.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and happy Mother's Day in advance to all our mothers and the mothers to be in the house. And thank you for joining in what I know will be an interesting afternoon. I want to say thank you to everyone that has joined, especially our dear sister Kemi, who has joined us all the way from North Carolina in America. So you are welcome, Sister Kemi. God bless you. Thank you to Blessing, to Sister Tolu, and to Emmanuel, the only man on the panel today. I guess it's going to be a wonderful time. And then welcome also to Mommy Pastor, who is joining us for the first time. I want to say thank you, virtually. So I want to pray now. Father, we want to say thank you for this wonderful weekend. Thank you for this wonderful day. It's a day that you have made. We are glad and we rejoice in it. Heavenly Father, we want to say, be the one in charge today. And thank you for everyone that has joined and as many that will be joining from all over the world. And we pray, Lord, that at the end of it all, each and every one of us will be mightily blessed. Thank you for all your children that will be ministering to us today. Father, we say be thou glorified. For in Jesus' mighty name, we have given thanks. Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you for that. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce some of the guests that we have with us today. So we have Kemi, who's joined us from North Carolina, and we also have Tolu, who's joining us virtually, and also Emmanuel, the only man in our midst who's joining us virtually. So we have a couple of, quite a few questions collated, which we'd like to ask, but also is open to the guests as well. If they had any question, then it's open to you to sort of like ask and we discuss it together. So I think it would be nice to sort of like open the floor with, basics of what the topic we'll be discussing today is. So I'm going to direct this one to Kemi. The first question we have is, what is social pressure and what are some examples of societal pressures that women face?
When you think about social pressure, one of the things that I wrote about society is we're a body of individuals, and so people who share common goals as a community. Right now, in our day and age, the social media is where we all come together and see one another, share values, So when you think about when you think about society, you're thinking about a body of individuals. You're thinking about a lot of people. So as a community, you're thinking about a person. You're thinking about family. You're thinking about the church community. You're thinking about your gym community. You're thinking about your school. You're thinking about everything that makes us share these common goals is what makes us a society. So, we come to church right now, RCCG, CRA, you guys, that's a community right there. So the Black people, the culture is what makes us a society. So when we think about the pressure comes from the mindset of fitting in. You understand? We begin to talk about pressure when we feel like we're out of place. When you feel like you're out of place, you feel the pressure to fit in to a society. A society that shares a common goal. For instance, the United States was founded by, a bunch of men who were tired of a certain way of life. They left the United Kingdom and then they formed a new society, a new nation, right? Because they shared common goals. So anybody that did not participate or that did not appreciate those goals, because it's a common and a shared goal, you were basically out of place. You understand? So the pressure to constantly fit in is where we are, as a people. And so women face all kinds of pressures. We already face a lot of pressures as people when we feel like we're out of place. So that's how I want to answer that question.
Great, thank you very much. I think it's important. I think you covered quite a lot with regards to what covers, the societal pressure that, that women face. So if I direct it to Tolu, where do you think these pressures come from as women? I think you're muted.
Thank you. So like Kemi has already said, describing what a society is, what a community is, what makes up, that body of people. I think just in the word societal pressure itself, there's so many ways in which these pressures can happen. Mm-hmm. But I think first and foremost, rightly again, like Kemi said, social media, it is a social platform, it is a social community that we can all identify with. So I would say that these pressures do come from society. Again, society is made up of people like us, is made up of our families, our friends, churches, communities that we belong to. So it doesn't necessarily have to come from one person. So it could be parents, family. So it's all around us all the time. So I believe that these pressures can also be in different forms. So sometimes they may come as direct pressures, they may come as indirects, they could be spoken, unspoken, different kinds of ways, very subtle ways that these pressures can come up. And I also believe that even though these pressures can come from the society around us, the people around us, it can also come from within ourselves, especially as women, because we tend to see a lot of things. Again, there is social media. Even before there was social media, you still hear things, you see things. We have friends, we have family, we see what obtains outside. So whether you're a young woman trying to get up climbing the ladder in your career, or you're trying to start a family, whatever regard, whatever stage, and again, especially as Black and ethnic minority women, there's always been that pressure, again, coming from society and even within ourselves to reach certain milestones at a particular time and in a particular order. So take, for example, when you graduate from school, of which you have to graduate with a very good result so you can get a decent job, then you find someone to settle down and get married to, and then start a family. Perhaps buy a house after you start a family, or buy a house before you start a family. Those milestones are there, and they're supposed to be achieved in a particular order. So even though sometimes we do have parents that may be careful enough not to put those pressures on women, or you may have friends, or you may belong to a society that tries their best not to put that pressure on women, we ourselves, in all honesty, we see these things, and in our minds we start thinking, oh, like Kemi rightly said again, we want to fit in, we want to be seen in this particular light, we want to be appreciated in this way, we don't want to feel left out. So I think not just the society around us, but majority of that pressure as well comes from us as women.
Yeah, I think I quite like the point that you raised about pressures coming from us, within us as women, and definitely we're going to have some discussion around that as we move along. I'm sure there are questions that sort of are relating to that. So moving on, our next question, I'll go back to Kemi on this one. Why is there growing pressure to be married, assuming that single people cannot lead meaningful lives?
Can you come again with a question?
Yep, so why is there growing pressure to be married, assuming that single people cannot lead meaningful lives? So why do single people have a lot of pressure to be married? Why can't the ones who want to remain single remain single?
Again, I think that we need to think about the past for us to appreciate the present. You understand? We're coming from we're growing from a culture that prioritizes. I'm Nigerian, so I can speak as a Nigerian woman, right? Before we became so westernized, there was only so much that women achieved. You understand? So what has been taught to us as value, right, is what we are carrying. And either we accept it or not, consciously or subconsciously, it's somehow wired within us that these are the values that we must have. We uphold marriage because from the past, if you do not appreciate what's happened in the past with our mothers, what they've had to go through, we would not understand the reason for that pressure. We need to look at how our mothers grew up. They had so much less. You understand? We have a lot. Right now, I live in the United States of America. I can fend for myself. I don't need to look to a man. You see what I'm saying? To fend for myself, we are allowed jobs. You understand what I'm saying? We're allowed the opportunities that some of our mothers did not have. So the only thing that was taught as value to a typical average woman in Africa, and in Africa as a whole, a continent, right? And not even just Africa. Think about the United States of America. Now we fight for women's rights because women are coming to a place of independence. So even look at the Bible, okay? This was what was taught to us, even, as a Jewish community. You understand what I'm saying? This is what was told women, that the place of a woman, right, is in appreciating marriage until she sees herself differently. And there were different women that stood out like that, like that. But the woman is first an individual. You understand? Before, if we start to teach in our generation, and this is what is beginning to happen, women are beginning to see themselves as individuals, marriage or not. And it has to continue to be taught. You understand? And this is why there's a lot of rebellion, there's a lot of disconnect between the past generation and us. It's because we cannot even rectify the gap. And so we need to begin to understand what has happened in the past, and in order for us to be able to appreciate the future. So when we do that, we take a lot of pressure off of us. We need to understand. Talk to your mothers. You understand what I'm saying? Let them talk to your grandmothers. Let them understand what is happening now. I had to sit with my son this morning to speak to him about being a black boy, and I was surprised about what I heard. Our mothers, they did less talking, you understand, and did a lot of, this is how it should be done. And we thought that these values were us. And again, those values makes you, if you're a special person with a gift and your life, your destiny is completely different, the value that has been taught you forces you, you understand what I'm saying, into fitting into a societal situation, the pressure that comes with, you need to be married now. Yeah. So everybody is different. You have to understand that everyone is different. And as a mom now, you can make those differences. So.
Thanks, Kemi. I think, from my perception, that would be it. I feel like the reason why we have a lot of these is because our values is what makes who we are, and we all have different ideas and different perceptions because of the values that we have. And someone's decision to either get married or not get married can stem from the values that you have. So if you're under pressure from somebody to get married, then that's almost like them imposing their values on you. And I think it's quite important that you mentioned, people's values, because that is what, that's what they bear in mind or they have in mind when they're influencing other people. Now, it's quite interesting to hear from Emmanuel. What do you think? What is your view? What's your perception about this, from your perspective?
Thank you. First, I want to point out that value is not an individual thing. It's something that is carried by a community or a group of people. And the reason why, so different communities are going to have like different values. So it's not like someone is imposing a value on you. It's more like someone is trying to impose the value of the community or the organization on you. Having said that, there are many reasons why a lot of things are changing in this generation. A lot of reasons. And there are also new sources of pressure, especially for women. For instance, feminism is another source of pressure. As human beings in general, we are social beings. And that means that we do not want to be outliers, so to speak. So our life generally is a quest to find balance. Okay, I want to be unique, and at the same time, I want to be part of a group. And generally, that's what we are as humans. Now, so when it comes to pressure, pressure is some sort of external force, that tries to pull us in one direction, right? So if we are referring to societal pressure, it then is, the pressure that comes from society that tries to force us to become more like what the society considers to be normal. And then there is also the internal pressure, which is us trying to be unique and different from society. So when these two begins to pull apart, the person in the middle, of course, is the individual, and the individual struggle to find balance is what we refer to as dealing with these pressures. So when it comes to the issue of marriage, I do not have a position on it, so to speak, because I do have there are reasons why we got married in the past. For instance, in Africa, we didn't know anything about things like sickle cell and stuff like that and the rest. And a lot of people got in the wrong marriage and relationship, and their children just kept dying. And to make up for that, they married more wives. Of course, if you marry another wife, it's more likely that that child is going to survive because maybe the mother is the right genotype, and then you have more children. So there are quite a number of reasons why a lot of people have gotten married. But over time, with civilization, a lot of these things have been wiped out. And we are beginning to see no need for them. And definitely, because there's no need for them anymore, we begin to evolve. Now, having said that, on the other hand, in this generation, we see marriage as some sort of status symbol, in the sense that, I'm a married person and blah, blah, and stuff like that, and things like that. It's something that we see as a status. If you go on Facebook, Instagram, you see people putting pictures of them, their families, and stuff like that. It's something that makes them, they feel as though it's an achievement, and that's another reason why I see a lot of people want to get married. Parents will say, all my children are married. My niece is married, my dad is married, blah, blah, and stuff like that. Similar to, for instance, if you're a black parent, you would have had this all the time. All my children have graduated, from the university, they're all degree holders and stuff like that. So I see a societal expectation. I also see the status symbol as also another reason why people, I will not say forced, but I would say encouraged, in a rather unique way to get married. Is it good or is it a bad thing? To be honest, I'm not here to come and call that out. But at the end of the day, I see it's about balance. We still have a healthy population pyramid in places like Africa and stuff like that. We still have, I saw the Nigerian population growth yesterday, it was about 2.58. So we still have that as positive. In countries, I think the UK is about 0.53. It used to be negative before. In many countries, because of this apathy towards marriage and because of this rebellion to what was previously considered a norm, they now have negative population growth. They have marriages that don't last long enough to have more than one child. And see, so when you put all these things together, at the end of the day, you really cannot say whether societal pressure is a good thing or a bad thing. But what we're here to do is teach individuals how to deal with this societal pressure so that they can feel fulfilled as they go through life.
Thanks, Emmanuel. I think you summed it up very, very nicely. I think there's always going to be times when there's pressures coming from different angles, and it may not necessarily be a bad thing, but I think Emmanuel quite pointed out that, it's also about equipping ourselves to deal with these societal pressures, because, it also depends on your values. I always used to say that for some, marriage is just another milestone that they have to achieve, you know, after you finish from school, you get a job, and you get married, and you have kids, yada, yada, yada. But not everyone thinks like that. But also it's about not sort of like condemning or thinking negatively of the people who do think like that. So we have another guest with us, Anne, the more the merrier. So I feel maybe from an older lady's perspective, I'm just going to ask you a question now. So from a faith-based and practical perspective, what should a BAME, so this is black and minority and ethnic groups, women's approach to thinking about family planning, and how should this relate to what her husband thinks? So from a faith-based and practical perspective, what should a BAME woman's approach to thinking about family planning, and how should this relate to what her husband thinks? So this is for Anne. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Well, personally, like it has been mentioned by one or two of the speakers, the issue of societal pressure, the way I look at it, I know the pressures are there. And first of all, personally, I think it's your call. It depends on you, how you respond to those pressures that matters. Because pressures will always be there. People always have their various expectations from you as an individual or as a family or within a group. But it now depends on your interpretation, first of all, of that pressure and your reaction to it. Sometimes pressures can be subtle, sometimes they can be, very obvious. But as a person, it is how you decide to react to that pressure that will matter. So that's aside. To your question about, is it family planning you mentioned?
Yeah.
And how what I see to concerning religious, looking at it from the religious perspective.
Yeah.
Personally, I think there are different things that could affect or impact your decision about family planning as a couple or as an individual or as a couple within the Christian concept. Because if you plan, it is better. Like for some people, for some Christians, even before they get married, they sit down with their spouse, with their, marriage partner before they get married and say, to each other what number of children they intend to have. But for a lot of us, I know in Africa, we have this mentality that says, oh, you don't count children. You just take them as they come because it is the Lord that giveth. But gone are those days. People in the olden days, people have children because of the economic value they had to the family. That is one thing a lot of people don't consider. Our forefathers, they have different wives, they practice polygamy because of the kind of lifestyle they live, because they are mostly farmers. And these children, the more children they have, the more wives they have, they contribute to the work on the farm rather than hiring laborers or outsiders to do the work. These are the unpaid, employees that they have. So that is what a lot of people don't understand. Polygamous is not something that just came up because men like to marry. It has an economical reason why people do it. But for now, things are changing.
Yeah.
Even now, you will still see people that want to have more children, despite the fact that they don't run a farm or anything. They just like it. But my take on it is that if you can afford it, and it is something that should be decided between the two spouses, not by any external influence. We've had stories of people who get married, and because in most cases, it almost happened to me because I experienced it too, and I will tell you how. If one of the person in the marriage is an only child, you always have this pressure from the parents of that person to have a lot of children to compensate for being an only child. My mom was an only child, and I know she and my grandmother used to have arguments about this issue because my mom was educated, she had a profession and things like that. And sometimes when me and my siblings, we are, quarreling in the house, kids will be kids. My mom will say, oh, it's only just these two of you or these three of you that are causing so much trouble. Imagine if I have more. And my grandmother will be working on us, telling us, tell your mother to have more children now. Tell her now, because she was an only child. So there are a lot of pressures that come from everywhere. But my mom was adamant that, no, I'm not having too many children. At the end of the day, she ended up having 4 of us. And she was always complaining that we were even too much. Those are pressures that people face. But personally, I think people should not be pressurized into decisions, especially things like, children or other things, whatever it is the spouses in the marriage that should decide what is best for them. You look at your financial circumstances, you look at your capabilities, you look at a lot of things. How will you cope? Even if you have the money, will you have time to look after the children? Will you have time to, give them your personal, attention? These are the things. It's not just because you have money, you can have 10 children. Even if you have 10 nannies, they cannot make up for being their mother or for being their father. These are the things. So personally, I don't let societal pressure affect me. But we are different. Some people don't have that, how will I put it? They don't know how to handle pressure. Let me put it that. They just crumble. As soon as 1 or 2 people say certain things to them, they just want to please the society or the immediate community or the family. But as Christians, first of all, we should pray about things and ask God to lead us. Then secondly, within our home, our family, husband, wife, you can even debate it. You can even call your children into the discussion to ask about their opinion. What do you think about this thing? What do you think about that? If they are old enough to, to reason and to understand what you are talking about. Yeah. So it's something one should not take with levity and just decide on whims or how will I put it, without thinking or planning. So that is my own submission to that. Thank you.
Thanks, and I think you did well to sort of take it back to what it used to be like back in the day, and I'm sure that things will be different now. And I like when you mentioned that it should be between you and your spouse and your little family. You shouldn't let other people from the outside dictate how you should run your family or what should happen within your family, and also knowing how to deal with those pressures, because if you don't, then you're most liable to sort of fall for those kind of things. And I'm sure now things are different as to what they used to be like back in the day. So your decision as a family will be, be around those changes, those, societal changes. So thank you very much. So I would like to direct this question to Emmanuel. So the question is, it is likely that more men or husbands in future may begin to work from home full time. How can this development affect the order and dynamics of our household? Did you get that?
Yeah, I do. I got it. Obviously, if people are beginning to work from home and more people, it's really a no-brainer. A lot of things between the office we can do from the house. I personally have a home office at home with all my laptops and computers and everything on hand. You really can. You don't have to take your bath and stuff like that. You're just in the office and you're working and stuff like that. If this is something that continues way into the future, then I think it's some sort of like win-win situation. A lot of people want to spend time with their family. They want to spend time with their children, but because of work, this is not because they also have to provide for their children, for their family, and they have to work to do that. And as time has gone on, obviously, biologically speaking, the woman is better equipped to take care of children than the man is. And of course, again, during pregnancy, there are going to be times when the woman is indisposed, maybe shortly before delivery and a few months after delivery. So traditionally and biologically, it has always been like the role of the man to shoulder the burden of providing for the family. And so because of that and because of all this, there are loads and loads of stories. There are some men that have had to be at work when your wife was put into bed. And not because they don't like their wife or because they don't love their wife, but because, they have to provide for the wife and things like that. But with this development, I see it like as a win-win situation for everyone. Those people that want to be at home, those people that want to, spend time with the children, can get to spend time with your children, can get to spend time with your wife, and can still work to earn money to take care of their wife and their children. And also, it can also help to ease the burden of bringing up children, especially that just put on the wife. Can help with simple things, like cleaning the house, the environment, but more importantly, it gives the man more time and ability to impact, especially his male children. Because what we see here is like a woman has been brought up we've had like this transfer of culture, this transfer of cooking skills, transfer of cleaning skills, from grandmother to mother. And then now, because most times women that bring up children to their daughters, but the sons are lagging behind. And that's why we see that in this society, especially for Black and ethnic minorities, it is really a difficulty bringing up male children. They miss that traditional father figure that is supposed to be there to teach them how to take certain steps in life. So if this development continues, then the fathers are going to have that opportunity to pass on, those necessary skills, and get their children through those difficult times, and those rite of passages, and teach them what they need to be, to be responsible young men. So for me, I really see it as a positive development, and I hope that continues long after the pandemic.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Thanks so much. I think there are. It's good to hear from your point of view, but I'm almost certain that not all men will agree with that. And just very quickly, I don't know if you've thought about it from the perspective of the men who may not agree with it, and if you feel like there's anything that you would like to say to those group of people, or any clarification.
Yeah, there is. I presume that there are some men that will not be happy with it. Because their place of work is some kind of like solitude, where like they are with themselves. Maybe in that particular place they can concentrate. They feel like, okay, they're away from their wife, their children, and the family and stuff like that. And depending on the kind of work you do, it might be difficult, to have, that kind of solitude. There are also some men that, engage in adulterous affairs and stuff like that, and use work as a cover, for those kind of things. There are many reasons, both reasonable and unreasonable, that a lot of people have. Everyone is unique, for not wanting that to continue. And for some people, it's just the fact that they drive out and in the morning and they drive back. Men are generally kind of like this kind of hunter-gatherer species, get what I'm trying to say. And they feel some fulfillment in the fact that they went out, they did something and then they came back in. So yeah, there is also that to it. I also talked about that, but I'm trying to balance the advantages against the disadvantages. Not all of us, men and women, will be able to work from home when this pandemic is over. A lot of people have lost their job just because they couldn't work from home. Personally, I'm an engineer, and it's really kind of going to be difficult for me to do certain kind of things remote. I have to go to the office. I have to go and use some equipment and stuff like that. So what I see in future is that we might have a post-COVID economy or a post-COVID society where you'll be allowed to work from home when you can, and maybe go to work when you can't. And maybe that would bring some sort of balance. But yeah, there could be reasons why people will not want to.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Thanks so much. I just wanted to put in very quickly, and I know there are quite a few people that might disagree with this, but I also feel like this is why values is always very important, because imagine you are with somebody, or who was from a completely, like, a different generation, and so they were from a generation that believe, either a woman can't work, she has to be a full housewife, I'll do all the working, so I don't have to do anything apart from work, and then she does all the chores, all the this, all the that. Or a completely different perspective where the man is okay with working at home, or the woman working and him taking up the responsibilities. And so that's why I said I feel like it's important that you know the person that you're with, you know their values and what they think, because it's difficult to change people's values. It's very, very difficult. So the kind of values of the person that you are with is also very important. So whatever they believe in, as long as it's aligned to whatever the woman feels is important. And there are some things that you will disagree on, but it's about sort of compromise and looking at what works for you as a family, in the society that you're in and whatnot. So yeah, thank you very much, Emmanuel. So we have a few questions coming in from Slido. Thank you very much for the question that you've asked, and feel free to ask anonymously as well. So I'm just going to read this one out that we have from an anonymous person on Slido. And I'm going to leave this one open for any one of our guests to sort of answer. How do I deal with the pressure of wanting to provide adequately for my family with limited resources, especially when it seems easy for other families? So how do I deal with the pressure of wanting to provide adequately for my family? Sorry, it's gone. So how do I deal with the pressure of wanting to provide adequately for my family with limited resources, especially when it seems easy for other families? So does anybody feel like they want to talk about this or discuss this or answer this question?
I think I'll just jump in.
Yeah, totally.
But before I answer that, before I comment on that question, not to play the devil's advocate on this issue, but I would like to just mention some things with regards to what Emmanuel had mentioned earlier. I observe, as he's the only man on this panel with this discussion, I observe that he is really trying to paint a very good picture of how things should be. But again, this is why we are having this conversation. This is why this topic is important. So earlier when we discussed about why the pressure is there to get married, he mentioned that parents or family, society, they don't necessarily force but encourage, women to get married. I think the word encouraged is good, but I think it's also important that we understand that the way pressure comes at times, like we mentioned earlier, even when Pastor mentioned it earlier, it could be subtle, it could be very direct, it could be very heavy on you. And the truth is, it's only the person receiving the pressure that can decide or that can say for sure, this is the level of pressure I'm receiving, this is how, it is being received by me. Because you might very well mean it in love. And let's be honest, yes, some of our parents do, some of the society, our friends, and people who put this pressure on women, it can come from a place of love. But at the same time, it will be down to me as a Black woman to decide and tell you, well, this is how the pressure you are sending to me, this is how I'm receiving it. Now, I think, Mommy Pastor mentioned it earlier, the thing with mentality. So I can speak of Nigeria, and I can also say that this applies to a lot of other Black countries as well. So I want to believe that our parents, even in the past, one major reason why that pressure is always there, not even just parents, so guardians, aunties, uncles, your friends, as well. When they start getting married, they start getting engaged, you might be a very tough person. You see these things, but you don't take it to heart. But the truth is, when you constantly you're constantly being told that, someone's got married, a cousin got married, or got engaged rather, last year, and they're getting married this year. And then next year, another one is getting married, and you're like, I'm aware, but why exactly do you feel the need to, continuously repeat these statements? Now, I think these things happen because sometimes our parents, or again, society, tend to feel that getting married is a form of success to an extent. And as a woman, we also need that, as a Black woman especially, we also need that kind of protection in life. Again, it might be perceived differently in a more westernized country. But again, like I said, I can speak for Nigeria. I know that it is almost a taboo, or it is almost frowned at or seen somehow when a woman decides to go and live on her own. She decides to leave her parents' house and decides to get a place to be more independent. It's almost seem like, why would you want to do that? Shouldn't you leave your parents' home or wherever it is that you're being guided to your husband's house? Why can't it be? Yeah. So, I'm just trying to say or discuss the realities, because it's true. And I'll be honest, before I got married, I remember saying, I was going to move out. I was going to, settle on my own and do this and do that. And I remember being told, why do I want to do that? And I kept thinking to myself, why can't I? Yeah. Again, it's not because other people were doing it, but it was just something I desired, and of course, we've been to uni, you've stayed on your own most of the time. So why would it be that when you get back home, it's different? Why should it be? Because then you spent most of your time at university on your own. So I feel like society just thinks that we women, we need that kind of protection. To say you want to stand on your own and be independent is almost impossible, even though it is possible and it's done. So I think that mentality is important. That's why we're having this discussion, so that society, even you yourself, when you get that kind of pressure, you should be able to identify it and know that, okay, this is where it's coming from. And also, even parents, they want that continuation of the family lineage. They don't want everything to just end with them. And I also find that these pressures are mostly with the female children than the male child. Because we seem to be the, weaker vessels. We seem to be the one that need control. We seem to be the one, that need that kind of head on top of us to be able to direct us and things like that. And even more importantly, the Bible says, I think in Matthew, that some will be married and some will not be married. And it is absolutely okay. Because I have a lot of single friends, engaged friends that have just gotten married, but I don't see them any differently. But I imagine some people would see and say, why would a married person still be friends with a single person? What difference does it make? What difference should it make? If at the end of the day, there's people that we associate ourselves with, that we call our community, if what we're doing as women, is uplifting each other, encouraging each other, driving each other to the best, to the top, that's what should be important, not the fact that someone is single. Because then again, if it's a situation where, I think people just assume that once you're in a certain stage in your life, you shouldn't associate yourself with people who haven't reached that level. Almost like they are not, they should be able to get what you have gotten before you can relate. Why should it be that way? So I think that mentality is what society needs to watch out for. And also the same pressure that fathers, mothers, aunties, uncles, friends, even though sometimes they may mean it in love, it's always important that we know how we communicate these things, because to be honest, it's not something I want to pass down to my children. It's not the kind of mentality I want, my children to see and then imbibe as well. So this, again, is why we're having this conversation, so that things that we could not have corrected growing up, we have a chance to correct that, with our own family going forward. And to your question, how do you make sure you provide adequately for your family? I think it depends on what you mean by adequate. Other people might be doing over and beyond for their own family. It doesn't necessarily make your provision or the love, the effort, everything you do for your family, it doesn't make it inadequate. So first step is stop looking at what others are doing. Whatever anybody else is doing for their own family, to you might seem adequate, but perhaps to them it's even inadequate. They're probably looking at another family or another situation and thinking, oh, how can I do more? So I think that's the first step. Just being aware that, okay, I'm now beginning to compare my family with that family. I have no clue. I have no idea what goes on in that family. I probably see pictures that look perfect on social media, or I hear things of how they go on holidays every year, 2 to 3 holidays every year. Their kids attend the best schools. But the truth is, you don't know the dynamics of their family. So for you to want to put that pressure on yourself, because you're having to provide for your own family, what would happen is you end up having anxiety, and then you end up having to, probably fall into depression because you feel like you're never doing enough. And that way it reflects on your household. It reflects on how you relate with your children, how you relate with your family. So I think having that understanding that whatever I do in my household, if I know that I'm doing my best, if I know I'm doing what, if I'm working within our capacity, what we can afford, and it's all, being enjoyed in love, I don't think there should be any form of regrets or any form of comparison or any form of pressure. Because again, if we can enjoy what we have while we have it, and then things get better, you will still then enjoy what you have when you have it. But if right now, it's like saying you're a single person, and then you keep admiring people that are engaged and getting married, and you see these pictures and videos and you think, oh my God, when? The popular God when, and then you never get to enjoy that stage of your life. Then you do rush, you then get married, and then it's like, okay, so this is what they're talking about. But then, like Emmanuel rightly said, because of that pressure, the marriage then doesn't last, because you don't even know what it takes to maintain that marriage. You don't know what the other family members are, or the other family that you're seeing, you don't know what they're doing to provide in the so-called adequate, for their own family. So I don't think that pressure is right. Understand why you're doing what you're doing for your own family, and that it is enough. But at the same time, if you truly know that what you're providing is not enough, then that could be maybe a positive encouragement to say, okay, I need to step up, I need to do more to provide for my family, but not necessarily because the other family is doing it in this way or other families are doing it in that way. Again, that's what we mentioned earlier about putting that pressure on ourselves, even though people are not necessarily directing it at you.
Thanks, Tolu. Quite rightly said. I think your own adequacy is between you and your family. And remember that no matter how adequate you think you are prepared, it will always be inadequate to some other families. So you've got to remember that. So I hope that answers your question. So I'm going to move on to our next question, which is, when a woman gives birth and the sex of the child is not male, in some instances, the woman is blamed. Now, I would like to contribute to this before I throw it out to our guests from a health professional's perspective. First of all, traditionally, this just spells, and sorry if it offends anyone, ignorance, because this is not a matter of anybody's opinion, yeah? This is genetics, yeah? So no matter what you think, whether or not you think is the man's fault or the woman's fault or family's fault or whatever, it doesn't change the fact that it is what it is. It is either a boy or a girl. Yeah? So I feel like the people who have, because obviously from a perspective of an African, you do have people who are, who put pressures on women with either all male or female children as to why she hasn't given her husband a male child, and the woman is blamed, even though the woman, even the man, cannot be blamed for that. So just to put it into context, we have two, sex chromosomes, the X and the Y, and they sort of like determine the sex of a child. So the females gets the X chromosome from the father, and the males gets the Y chromosomes from the father. A woman can only give an X chromosome. So whether or not a baby's female or male depends on the man, on whether, it contributes the X or the Y chromosomes. Having said that, does not mean that men are now blamed for, giving a Y chromosome or an X chromosome, because they have no control over that. So I think it's just a matter of ignorance and just re-educating people about how these things work in terms of like genetics, and not necessarily because a woman is doing something to her body or because of what she's done in the past, and that hence why she can't have a male child. So having said that, can I just direct that? So I don't know if, it will be a good question to ask Emmanuel to see what, from his perspective, because I know Emmanuel's also African, so it would be nice to hear from Emmanuel's perspective.
Thank you. With regards to the sex of the baby, personally speaking, other than the stress of bringing up a male child, I do not really see any difference, so to speak, between male or female. It has been scientifically proven that male and female do have the same IQ, so we're equally intelligent. Women are better at organizing, things. Men are better at, innovating. Just put it that way. So men are better at dealing with changing conditions, if you want to put it that way. But these are very insignificant differences that really do not, on an IQ basis, we're the same. And there's nothing different about men and women. So I do not see any reason why someone is going to prefer a man over a woman. Again, that's my personal opinion. Other than the stress, obviously, I know that me personally, I was what, like the stress of maybe 4 or 5 babies. So yeah, because again, biologically speaking, the metabolism rate of men is like on average twice that in women. So they tend to be a bit more active. They scatter the house, they run more, they jump more, and things like that. But other than that, the females, they also run, they also jump, and stuff like that. So it's not really any, children will be children anyway. So I don't see anything. Now, with regards to the process by which fertilization takes place, yeah, it is true that neither the man nor the woman can control the process. However, the process does take place within the woman. And again, scientifically speaking, the sperm that results in the woman is more tenacious than that results in the man. So those that will result in the man has to get the egg quicker. But that results in females, they can weather a lot of storm and get there. So how will I put it? The odds are in favor of always having a female child. So by nature of designing in such a way that the odds always favor female over a male. The male, they live fast and they live short. But the females, they can, persist and stay there for a long time, and eventually get into the egg and get fertilized. So there might be unique conditions where processes that take place within the body result in that. But the most important factor is that neither a man nor a woman can control the outcome. It's totally down to chance, and of course, the females will always have the benefit. There's a higher chance of giving birth to females than it is male. If you want to look at it in terms of demographics, I think places like in Africa, we're kind of like 50-50 when you consider the birth rate of male and female children. Places like India, they actually do something that's really bad where, when they find out sex of the baby is a female, they take it out. But other than that, naturally speaking, they are the worst in terms of this asymmetry, in the sense that they have like 70% female and 30% male. I think China is kind of like us as well, 50-50. And I think the Western world, Caucasians are kind of like maybe 60-40, again, in favor of females. So there is that tendency, so to speak, like biologically. But I really don't see, we live in a world where with technology, anyone could do anything, whether you're male or female. You could have a female fighter pilot, behind the plane, send a missile or throw a bomb, and it's going to take out 50,000 men. So there is that technology further helps to wipe out whatever perceived advantage we have. So I will strongly discourage, that kind of behavior, and I don't see any reason why someone would want a male over a female or a female over a male. Because we always talk about this one way because we're from Africa. But I have friends. I have this friend. If he's watching this program, he's going to know I'm talking about him. And they had a male child, and maybe like 14 years later, they had a second issue, and they were praying that it's going to be a female. Like, they were literally going to like the baby store, say, "Oh, look at this fine clothes." Now, because they had a male child, like, I can't buy this clothes for my son, but but if it's a girl, like, they've had all sorts of things in their head that they want to do if they had a female child, but they had a male child. Second issue was it goes like both ways sometimes. Sometimes people like really want a female child, and other times they want a male child, but we really cannot control the process.
Yeah. Thanks, Emmanuel. Kemi, do you have any thoughts on this? Did you want to contribute? What did you... Oh, sorry, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I think that everything has been said. I don't have any much more to add. I totally agree with what Emmanuel and yourself has said about how children come to be. But I do know that there are different things, that helps the body, that stimulates the body. Some things that, if you study about these things, there are many articles are now beginning to talk about many different things that women can do to even, I'm not trying to be vulgar, but even as far as the position, even during the sexual intercourse, things that can be done, honestly, to get a particular sex. And hey, I don't know, if you want to look into it, please Google and find out the information. There are certain foods and herbs and things because, our bodies are, do not underestimate what your body really is. There are certain foods that can spark different things in your body. You understand what I'm saying? It's just like when you eat, for me, when I eat peanuts, my skin literally reacts. You understand what I'm saying? So it's the same way, even when it comes to sex, you need to think about, there's certain like foods that are aphrodisiacs. You see what I'm saying? They tell you if you eat watermelon or eat a certain fruit, there's a way that it stimulates your body. You have to think about what you're putting in your body that can actually, cause certain things. And because we haven't done these studies, so we don't know. You understand? So what we don't know, the knowledge you don't have, it's easy for you to pass over and say, maybe, but let's look into it. If you're really looking to have female children versus male children, read about what you need to do because the information is there. That's that's all I have to add.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have more questions coming in from Slido. Thank you very much for sending them in. Keep sending questions in if you have any. So whilst you're still on Kemi, can I ask, so this is from a question that someone just sent in. As a single parent, how do I deal with the social stigma, especially from the Black community? So as a single parent, how do I deal with the social stigma from the Black community?
Okay. And I believe that when you say Black community, it is because, again, of the culture that we have as Africans. What makes up the Black community is our culture as Black people. You understand what I'm saying? We have the notion that marriage is important. As Nigerians, I'm a Yoruba girl, so we were taught that, to raise a family, to raise children, marriage is very important. So because we already have this value, because we already have this mindset, we are under pressure because of the way we're perceived when something happens in a marriage. And mostly, as a woman, you are blamed. Automatically, it does not matter if the man was not responsible, if the man was abusive. It's unfair that women are perceived as the failure, you understand? And I think that that's what messes with the mind of a typical Black woman who now has to deal with the pressure of anytime she goes to family function, she's being seen as less because she no longer has a husband to help her in raising her children. So she has to deal with double the pressure that a married woman deals with in the home because she feels like she gets harder on her child, on her children, the way she raises her children. She's not raising them, sometimes she's not raising them from a place of love, so to speak, because of the pressure that she's already having to face, because she has to do double the work, so to speak. Even if she was taught by society that she could do this alone, perfectly, just like Brother Emmanuel said, that there's no difference between a male and a female. So what pushes us to think that we can do any less just because we are not in a marriage? We're not with a husband. You understand? So you have to first re-engineer yourself to think about where that pressure is coming from. It's coming from the fact that you have to deal with all these married people that make it look like, this is how it has to be. This is how it needs to be. You're a failure if you're not here. You understand? The value that you put upon yourself as a person is so important. And you have to believe that you are first a person who loves herself, a person who knows who God has made her to be. You understand? And it is in this originality that you can actually raise children properly. Because you can actually break your child as a single parent because of pressure. Not because you're not good enough, but because of the pressure that's coming from, you can't do this alone. It is true. I have met fantastic people. I know that in the beginning it was not so. God made the man and the woman, and then together they form a family. But what happens in a situation where you are now having to deal with an abusive situation, and now you have to raise a child by yourself? You need to do a lot of work on your heart. You need to first believe, heal, because I've had to deal with this. I was once a single parent, so I know that in all my years, I had to deal with the situation. I had to deal with my mind. I could not look at my son differently from the way that his father treated for so many years. So I'm speaking from experience. Sometimes we're stuck with having to deal with the pain that came from the abusive situation. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes we're stuck in our minds because we do not let go of the pain from that abusive situation or from the situation that did not work. And so because that situation did not work, and then there's all this pressure and you're feeling shame being the number one thing that single women, single parents, even if you're a single woman, just because you're not married yet, you're dealing with the shame of not fitting in to society. So as a single parent also, you have to deal with your mind so much. I preach therapy all the time. I say, please, and I mean Christian therapy. I'm talking about people who really understand the values, of Christianity. So because you don't want to take yourself to a place where you're just sitting there, you're paying all this money, and then you're listening to you talk about all your problems. What does that really do? Because even in talking about your problems, you need to be willing to take steps to begin to undo some of the things that were told you that are not true about you. And I'm telling you, you can do an amazing job, but the amazing job has to stem from you seeing yourself first as someone who is special. someone who does not need to depend on what society, the church tells you is right. I had to face pressure from the church. I was a chorister, and so I had to deal with people treating me like an outcast because there was a situation. I can tell you that I am a voice for so many women that have to deal with this. So no, your situation does not have to define you, because there is a child now who is looking to you for value, who is looking to you, looking at your heart, and you can pass on the wrong thing to that child. I'm happy to say that I love my son now. I only got to that point because I had to forgive his dad. These are things that are not necessarily preached all the time. We can sit and talk about the stigmas and talk about the things that lead to these situations, but we do not preach enough what needs to be dealt in the heart so that we can begin to see ourselves the way that God sees us. You understand? Until you get to that point, there's nothing you can pass on to a single, to a child as a single parent. All you're going to pass on to that child is brokenness. You're going to pass on the bitterness. You're going to pass on everything that did not work right in your life. You're going to break a child who God has really trusted you with. So if you're a single parent out there, I am here to encourage you, to tell you, you can do this. But you're going to have to start with yourself so that that child can look up to you for love. That child is looking to you for everything. The same thing, because there are many married couples today that are not happy. And the truth is that they're actually breaking their children. And those values, I'm telling you, your children are watching you like a gun. You have no idea. They're watching every step. They know when love is not existent, and you're already breaking them. I grew up in a home where there was constant bickering. You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes we don't know how much we put in the minds of our children. If you're going to be honest, the things that you watched in your children is what has made you today. These are the values that you're carrying today. So if we have broken couples, what is the difference? You tell me. If you think as a single parent you're doing that bad, you need to let them put CCTV in some parents' homes, in some married couples' homes. You will be thanking God for your peace, and you will change your mindset in the way that you're raising your child. Because you see, being a single person is not a curse, and then the love that you have is enough to heal your child. The love that you have is enough to raise that child. I'd rather be a single parent and raise my child in an atmosphere of love, rather than be married to someone who I do not even love. I cannot show love to, I cannot forgive, and my child is busy looking at that, and now he's going to pass that on to his children. You see what I'm saying? So that's how I'm going to lead that over to you, Blessing.
Yes, thank you very much, Kemi. That was very, very extensive. I couldn't have said it any better. Thank you very much. Now, before I pass it on to Tolu, who may also have some questions that she'd want to ask, if there's nothing coming in from Slido, but please feel free to send them in if you have them. I'd also like to ask Anne very quickly, how do you respectfully tell your family that your life is not based on their calendars? So this is for Anne. How do you respectfully tell your family that your life is not based on their calendars?
Sorry, that your life is not based on what?
That your life is not based on their calendars.
On their calendar.
Calendars, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said earlier, everything you do in life, the ultimate decision is with the individual involved in the matter. Because at the end of the day, people can advise you, people can say this or that, although most of them are well-meaning, they mean well, but it's not every advice people give you that you can take. That's the most important thing. Some advice are well meant, but that particular advice may not suit you at that particular time. So it depends on what your situation is at that point in time. When people look at you from outside, or they see things, they may not know the nitty-gritty of what is happening. And like they say, he who knows it feels it. People may come to you and say, oh, I've noticed this. I've had people come to me some time ago. Somebody said to me, oh, I think you are annoyed. And I was amazed. I said, I am not annoyed. I am just tired. Do you see where I'm going? People can read, they can read meaning into things, they can say things to you based on their own perspective of things. But you, as a person going through that situation or that knows the true picture, will be able to put them straight and say, no, that is not it. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to say everything. Because at the end of the day, it's not everybody you want to tell about everything that is going on in your life. Even some close families, by the time you tell them, before you know it, they've blown it out of proportion. For someone that is trustworthy, that can understand, that is a Christian, yes, you can open up to them that, no, that is not the true picture. This and this and this is what is happening. And if that person you are talking to is somebody that you can trust, they can advise you or counsel you. But there are some that you don't even need their advice. And if they decide to make themselves your advisors, you can just thank them to say, thank you very much. I've heard what you have said. You don't have to be rude. You just thank them. But it is not everybody you explain your situation to. But when you know the person that is talking, you know where they're coming from. And this is someone that you have dealt with over time and that you have grown to trust. You know, you can tell them, oh, this is it. And they will say, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that is exactly what was going on. Because people can just see you. Maybe you are talking to your husband or a wife. Your husband is talking to a wife. They may seem angry. They may not really be angry. They may be just ironing things out in their own way. Do you understand? So you just have to learn to kind of politely tell people to give you space to make your own decision as an individual, especially when you are an adult. And if maybe you are going through a situation of things that you think maybe you've gone through, you've thought about it over time, and you have not been able to reach a decision. Sometimes the Bible says that there is safety in the multitude of counsel. Sometimes when you really think that, oh, I really need somebody that is more experienced to give me an advice, or someone that is spiritually more matured than me, then you can go to somebody that you trust, that you know that when you discuss with, the whole matter will not be blown out of proportion, or the whole matter will not be misconstrued, and they will advise you, based on biblical principles. Then you can, through that, you may be able to make some decisions and arrive at, a solution. So you can easily, sometimes because of our culture, also because of where we come from, it's not easy for us to tell people to mind their own business, because our culture is such a culture that people want to mind your business for you, but we can tell them, thank you very much. I really appreciate your concerns. Thank you for even coming to me and suggesting or advising me. That alone does it. And you can move on and go and make your own decision or find solution to your situation in your own way that you think will spiritually help you to grow, and it will also solve the problem for you, in a way that it will be lasting or in a permanent way. Praise the Lord. So that is the way I see it. You don't have to tell people to shut up or to mind their business or things like that. Some people are well-meaning. They mean well. But of course, some, when they are asking questions, they are not directly asking questions. They are going somewhere else. They are fishing, if I may put it that way. So, as an individual, the people around you, their character to an extent. So you'll be able to judge why or how, why that person is coming to you with those questions or telling you things, and how to reply them or to respond to their concerns, as such. God will help us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope that answers your question, the person that asked. So now I'm going to hand over to Tolu to sort of like ask a few questions that she also has.
Okay, thank you very much, Blessing, and thank you, Mary Pastor, for that contribution. Just before we do wrap up, sharing some tips on how to deal with the social pressures, I quite agree with what Mary Pastor has said. And the truth is, people really do like to make your business, their business. But, it's important that we, as women, so not just even Black women, just as people in general, we should be mindful of our mental well-being. So we would definitely know, for one, I would know when someone is well-meaning towards me with regards to a particular situation. So I think it's important that we're able to identify those that just want to know for the sake of knowing, and those that just want to, they really do care and want to help. Which is why, they always tell us that when you have issues, you know who you go to speak to and who you don't go to speak to. So I think it's always important that if to an extent you've had enough, genuinely someone has been coming to you to, out of love, telling you I'm concerned, this and this and that, but then you feel overwhelmed and you just feel like it's enough. I think it's okay. I think you are rightfully placed to just let them know your heart, not in an offensive way, but just to let them know that, okay, I really do appreciate what you have been trying to tell me and all that, but I need you to know that this is how I feel every time you come across this way, especially if you know that that person is just, because there will be situations, especially with family, especially with friends, especially those that can be insensitive to an extent. They probably don't mean certain things that they say, or they jokingly say certain things and expect everyone to laugh about it, but then they wouldn't. So they might say this in a group, or they might say this at your back, but they wouldn't come to you personally to inquire, oh, what is going on? I'm genuinely interested. Because you would know, I know friends that when I'm genuinely interested about certain things, I know how I approach them so that I don't come across as I'm just trying to be all up in your business, because genuinely speaking, I wouldn't want anybody to be all up in my business that way as well. So it's important that we take care of our mental well-being and we're able to identify those type of things. So I'll just come to you, Emmanuel. Now, I know through the lockdown and homeschooling, I know that through the news, if we have been watching, anytime parents have been asked, how's homeschooling going? How's the lockdown with the children at home going? Most times I know that when we see it on the news, I see mothers by the door with their children telling us the experience of how it has been happening. And I wonder, why am I not seeing a father standing on the door with the children? I wonder, I'm sure there are fathers, I'm sure there are men that are involved in this homeschooling with their children, but why is there that pressure for women to be the primary carers, for mothers rather, to be the primary carers for their children? Why is there that pressure for them to, be the one to get up in the morning, bath the child, make the food, dress the child, and then, get the child out to school? While the fathers, I suppose, just get up in the morning, get ready for work and are out. I'm not saying this is applicable to every father, but, why is that pressure there?
Thanks for your question. Just to add to what you and Mommy Pastor said, so if someone that takes advice from everyone is defined as naive, that's what you are. It's a wise person that filters the advice that's been given and accept that suits them. So wisdom is that ability to be able to filter, advice that you're given and then take that which suits you. If you just accept advice from anybody, you just go on Facebook, you see someone just post, some, words put together and say, oh, that's me. You're just naive. That's where you are. For you to move from that step, it's good to accept advice. That's not what we're saying, but, you can just accept advice from everyone and from, every source and stuff like that. We need to filter them and accept that. Now, to your question, I wanted to touch on it, but it kind of relates to the question as well. Society has been designed in such a way that the best template for success is achieved under marriage. So this is the way that humans have lived for thousands of years. The template for success has been like, so a married couple, whether man or woman, is more likely to be successful than a single man or woman. And then secondly, because, obviously, if you look at historically what happened before now that we have technology, the men were most likely to, I would speak about my tribe, and I'm a Yoruba man. What the men do, technically speaking, is just, clear out a piece of land, and after that, they go and start tapping palm wine and, hunting, to get all those type of things and the rest. The women are the primary people, the women and children are the primary ones that handle agriculture. They do the planting, they do the weeding, they do the harvesting, and stuff like that. So the men, all they do is clear the piece of land, which is like heavy lifting. And then after that, they just go hunting, tapping palm wine, blah, blah, stuff like that. The major agricultural work is being done by the women and children, of course. And so that's just giving you like a picture of what society was before the advent of technology. So it's not just women that feel this pressure, men also feel pressure to get married and blah, blah, and stuff like that. So society in general is designed in such a way that, in as much as I believe that every individual, can bring up children of their own, whether you're a man or woman as a single parent, I also acknowledge the fact that, especially in societies like Africa, in these societies like in the West, Europe, and the UK, in America, and things like that, they have passed some legislations and they have put some things in place that makes it easier. It is not still equal. That makes it easier for people to raise, their children as individuals, like single parents. But in places like Africa, even if we go out there and preach that we believe that you can raise your child and can be a successful member of society. We can point out many examples, Barack Obama being one of them. They can be respectful members of society. In reality, they are going to face more challenges because that's the way society has just designed. And I think that it is important that we begin to look at the way we've designed our society that in such a way that is disadvantaged, to a certain set of people. And I think that we need to begin to look into that, to make it much more even. Now, regards to the question that you asked with homeschooling, personally, I would say that my mom was a teacher, but I personally say that I really learned a lot from my dad. I used to ask different kind of questions. Why is the sky dark in the night? What is that star? How did God create this? How is that? And things like that. My dad would just take his time. My mom would always give you oh, God created it, blah blah, stuff like that. My dad is going to take this time and at least offer some sort of explanation, offer some reason why this is that and why that is that, and stuff like that. And I think it was really a very good experience. With regards to formal education, I think just because women are the ones that do the brunt of raising the children, it's also, that just follows by default. It just comes with the package, as they say, that now that, because we are now in this period where we have a lot of homeschooling, that it's also going to be the case that most of the people who have been homeschooled are schooled by their mothers. I necessarily don't see that as right, because as the pastor pointed out, Mrs. Anne Bikunde, that there is a safety in the multitude of counsel, right? So if, say for instance, I'm better at mathematics, and my wife is better at English than poetry, for instance. Why can't my wife homeschool the child in English, and I homeschool the child in mathematics? Or maybe she homeschooled in biology or something like that, and I homeschool it. When we put our resources together, right, we are transferring what we are good at, to that child. So the child can become, better, in every aspect, because he's getting the best from both parents.
Yeah.
And that's how I see. Again, in the Black ethnic minority communities, well, especially Black communities, we have the unique case where in the Western world, the women are more educated, and they actually even earn more. So it might be the case that a lot of these fathers are not equipped to be able to teach their children. But I'm personally looking forward to the opportunity where I'll be able to teach my child, some physics, some science.
Yeah.
I think that that's something that will be really very painful. I don't see any reason why, other than the fact that majority of the bringing up of children, falls to women, which is some sort of biological role. They are genetically designed for that purpose, and they're better at bringing up children. And I think that's the reason why this comes to this one. But there is no reason why it should just be the women that should do that.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much for sharing. And I think it's also important that if there is any woman out there that is possibly struggling, to care for the children alone, just because of that mentality or because of how we've been brought up, it's always important that if you have a support system at home, it's important that you ask for help where you know that you're not able to. And I'll come to you, Kemi, as well. What tips can you share to any woman currently struggling with societal pressure from friends? So from their peers in particular, so maybe things that their friends say to them or things that they see on social media. What tips do you think that they can use? You're on mute. Thank you.
Thank you so much for asking that question. So tips. It is so important for us to know, like the people that we receive counsel from. It's very important. Like when the pastor had rightly spoken about in the multitude of counsel. I want to mention just quite a number of people that I look to in the Bible that help me as a woman, because as women, we're powerful people, and then the source of counsel actually would determine the kind of value that we carry on, you understand, as people. Esther was one of them. And so the counsel doesn't necessarily need to come from, so to speak, men or women, because in Esther's case, she lost both parents, right? And her uncle became that person that was the voice of counsel to her. So basically, that was the friend that she had, because sometimes we need to define who friends are. You understand? Who friends? Well, who do we consider our friends? Our friends are very powerful people. These are people that we let in to our lives, and these are people that would always offer to us counsel based off of, the values that they carry or that they share, from their backgrounds and things like that. So in her case, Esther had nobody but Mordecai, right? When Mordecai was this old elderly man who, these were Jewish people in the lands that was not even their father's land. So, let's look at the Bible and let's look at the way that we are right now. We're westernized. We come from Africa. We come to a place like the United States. That was literally what was happening with Esther in her time. But then she had someone who was a guy who understood what was going on in the society, and he was able to prepare her, right? He was able to counsel her to fit in. Listen to what I'm saying, because she was unique. Her background was unique. But then there was something that Mordecai knew that allowed her to really fit into this whole context, because there was a Vashti who was, removed from the throne, and someone was able to guide her, to fit into her purpose. So what are you fitting into I'm saying to you, you need to understand what your purpose is, so that way the counsel that you receive are counsels that will actually cause you to fit into purpose, not into society, but into your purpose, because you need to be able to separate those two things. If you do not watch out for what your purpose is, you will receive counsel from just every Tom, Dick, and Harry. You will look at social media and you would think that you're receiving, guides, and you're receiving all kinds of things only to continue to fit into society continually without fitting into your purpose. So I want to say this to you as a woman who is watching me today. Do you even know what your purpose is? Because when you know what your purpose is, you will always seek for counsel that will always prepare you for that purpose and fit you in perfectly into your purpose. Another woman, Ruth, she had a Naomi. In her case, it was not a man that was really preparing her, but there was a Naomi who was guiding her. This woman had lost everything. Think about it. These were women who had similar stories. You understand? How do you pick your friend? You see, you have to look at people who understand, who share the same value. Both of them lost their husband. It is not all the time that Israel loves company. Listen, sometimes you need to understand the reason why that person is your friend and the purpose that you both, have, and how this person can help you. Accountability partner. You understand what I'm saying? People that will be able to nurture you into your, destiny, into your purpose. And the whole thing that Naomi understood culture, so she taught her amazing things that would allow, her to find favor with Boaz, right? Look at Mary, the mother of Jesus. I mean, it was crazy, right? Who did she have? Who did she really have? The Bible doesn't tell me that Mary had any friend, so to speak. All she had was a cousin. She received a message, a crazy message from an angel. I'm telling you, if we told people that we're receiving angelic visitations in this day and age, we feel like it's a crazy thing to even think about. But yes, you have dreams. There are ways that God is speaking to you right now, preparing you for your purpose. And you know what she did? She had a cousin. That was the only person that could confirm to her, that would just make her feel like, yes, you know what, I'm not crazy. I'm about to give birth to a child and it does not fit into society. I'm telling you, she was the mother of Jesus Christ. It was an immaculate conception. It was not normal. But because she could feel comfort, you understand, because her cousin, who was carrying a 6-month-old baby, burst into prophecy, and somehow she felt like she fit into a purpose. She didn't have to question that any longer. She didn't have to feel like a crazy person. She left God to deal with the Joseph in her life. She was not trying to, stop Joseph into, accepting me. What am I saying today? You need to know who you are as a woman. I've mentioned all these unique women. And one more thing I wanted to add. The reason why Esther is such an important place is because women, married women, you don't know the power that you carry as a married woman. You can change the cause, you see, of the world by being married to a powerful man. It is not all the time just hide yourself, cover yourself down and not speak. You are a voice in the ear of that man. When you are together in the private places, you need to be able to stir up the mind of your husband, be it on your knees, but also in a wise way. Esther did not try to coerce her, and there are different kinds of women. Look at the power that Jezebel had. Jezebel was stirring up her husband like mad, and he was busy killing folk. You understand what I'm saying? That's power right there. Women, you have power. Don't say because you're married to a powerful man and then they begin to beat down women, in the home. If you want the world to change for women, if you're married to a powerful man, you need to really, really demonstrate to him, for the sake of the many women, unborn children that are waiting for you. And that was what Esther did. So as a woman, your place is very important. You got to see it first. You got to believe it. And you have to really watch out for the voices of counsel that you're listening to, because it could change the world. Thank you, too.
That's really profound. Thank you very much, Kemi. Thank you very much. Well, just to round up as well, we'll come to you, Mommy Pastor. The church can be a very important community, especially for a Black woman today. And what role do you think the church should play in helping women to deal with these social pressures? And what tips do you think the church can afford women on how to deal with these social pressures? Mommy Pastor, can you hear us?
Can you take the question again, please?
Yes, ma'am. So I was asking, I said the church is an important community for a lot of us today. So what role do you think the church can play in helping women to deal with these societal pressures? And what tips do you think the church can afford women as well to be able to deal with these societal pressures?
The church, even from the beginning of time, the church has played a big role in women's life. And, well, what I would say, rather than, yes, the church should modernize, there are some things that the church can, how will I put it, that the church can gain from looking at society in general that are positive things, if I may say so, to, inculcate into the women within the church community. But at the same time, we should be very careful because the word of God cannot change. It is something that is constant. Like nowadays, you hear all sorts of things. Oh, the world is changing. Yes, the world is changing. Oh, things are changing. Things are evolving. Yes, it is. But at the same time, that standard that God has put in place for us as men and as children of God, we should not put it in the second burner and say, now we want to do things in our own way. If you look at it, women play a very significant role even in biblical times. If going through the Bible, who are the first people that always come in contact or have good relationship with Jesus? They are women. Through their hospitality, through the way they welcome him, through the way they worship him. Throughout the Bible, you read about women like Mary and Martha, like the Shunammite women that, welcomed the prophets of God. Things like that. Those are things that we should encourage women to do. Because when you are open, when you are able to receive the teachings of God into your life, you allow these things to permeate every area of your life. And in being open, I mean, when you are able to allow people to advise you, like we said earlier, when people advise you, you are able to say, okay, this is it. As long as that advice does not contradict the word of God. The Bible is our standard. And that Bible is a standard that cannot be changed or cannot be watered down one way or the other. But we can build on whatever we have. And through it, we are talking about, single women, families, children are doing this. The church, even in the back, in those days, I remember, most of the good schools, when we were growing up in Nigeria, most of the good schools were run by Christians. The missionary schools, they are the best schools. And you will see Muslims wanting their children to attend those schools because they see the good things that comes out from it. So that is the way we should continue to make the church now, to be like a beacon to the society, to everybody we come in contact with. That people, that in a welcoming way, that people will want to come in and say, the outside is terrible. People, they are being bashed left, right, and center. The society demands so much. There's so many things going around. But for people to be able to say, I know when I go into the church community, I will find that peace. I will find that love. I will find that encouragement. I will find that support. It doesn't matter where that person is coming from. Because one thing I found out is that we Christians, we are the first people that judge. We are so good at judging. You see somebody come into the church, you watch them for some time. They are starting to snoop around. Where is her husband? She hasn't got a husband. Do you know where she's coming from? I've known people who were who fled domestic violence, and they came to the church. How do you treat them when they get there? Do you start to poke nose into their matter to try to paint them in a way that, oh, they are no good because they were supposed to have a husband, and why did they leave their husband? Must they tell you all their stories? When you support them, when you show love to them, you bring them in, you make them feel loved. When they are ready, they will tell you their stories. And when they tell you their stories, you will know that even what they have gone through, you can't go through it. So these are the things. We have to be very careful, because Christians, we are so quick to judge people. And that is one thing we have to be very careful about. When you look at someone, they come in, they want that peace. Give them that peace. Give them that love. Give them that support, morally, financially, whichever way you can. When they are settled, they will know that, oh, I've come into a place where I'm finding peace. And with that peace, you will edify them, you build their life back. And they will be able to take off. They will be able to get to that place where God has prepared for them. Through your help, through my help. So these are the things we have to be very conscious about. And that is why, first things, especially among women, we have to discourage this habit of gossip. You see somebody, before you know it, you jump into their matter, no, leave them alone. When they settle, when they know that they trust you, you will hear the story you have been itching to hear. Praise the Lord. So God will help us.
Thank you very much.
The community have to be more open, more helpful, more accommodating, to people, especially people that were not part of us from the beginning. Somebody just walks into a church, especially when we are talking about women here. Before you see a woman that will leave her home or her matrimonial home to come to a place where they don't live, it takes a lot. Something must be happening. So God will help us, and this can, also be a general thing when we are dealing with everybody, be it man, woman, or a child. So that is my submission. I just pray that God will give us that grace, that love, even in our own hearts, to love others too. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you very much, Mommy Pastor. I think it's everyone's responsibility, each and every one of us, to be able to change the narrative and help ourselves and others to deal with these societal pressures. It starts from each and every one of us. And I'm also hearing awareness, because if you're not aware that there is this societal pressure, if you're not aware that this pressure is coming from this angle in whatever regard in your life, then you will not be able to take action. If you're not aware, like Kemi rightly said, that there is a purpose that you were meant to serve, then you will not know that whatever advice or counsel you are getting, you will not know whether it's in alignment with that purpose or not. So it's important that we are aware. It's important that we have confidence in who we are and confidence in who God says we are as women, as human beings in general. I'll just hand this over back to Blessing for any final comments and just to wrap up the session.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think, Anne, you wrapped that up and summed that very, very nicely. Thank you all to our guests as well who have joined us. I think, the points, the questions as well have been very, very valid. So just to sort of summarize what everyone has said, I'm hoping that all the questions have been answered. But before I sort of do a brief summary before I wrap up, are there any final thoughts from our guests? So from Kemi, Emmanuel, are there any final thoughts before we wrap up? Emmanuel?
So I just want to point out that I was looking up some articles and I saw one on the pressure, being a strong black woman. And it's good, don't get me wrong. I mean, the article concluded that it's good to, have that confidence, that ability that you can actually go out there, and achieve a lot. And if you look at the black community, especially in the United States, and look at the history of slavery and stuff like that, and all those kind of human rights struggle, a lot of it was carried, by strong black women. However, the article did conclude that they are more susceptible to depression. Again, I think that in as much as we want to, men or women, in as much as we want to be that strong, person, that person that, especially to women, that can shoulder this responsibility, that can carry, again, this is unrelated, about women being more agreeable, and that's the major reason why they earn less than men, in society and stuff like that. And it's actually true that the women that are less agreeable actually earn more, also, again, I mean, have that person of being like stronger and more assertive, and stuff like that. It's important that we live in life in balance, and I always emphasize that it's good to be strong. It's good to have ambitions. It's good to want to go out there and pursue your purpose. But at some other time, it's good for you to, reflect back, take time out, take time off. You're a human being, first and foremost, and to connect with your inner self, so that you're not just living your life, for what's out there, for what you want to achieve, for what you want to become. Yeah, the Bible puts it this way, saying, what shall it profit if you gain the whole world, and at the end of the day lose your soul? You also have a soul, your mental health, your well-being, it also needs attention. And it's not going to be nice if you actually go out there and achieve all your purpose, and within you, you're broken. Within you, you feel depression. The Bible says that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but that of boldness, of courage, and of a sound mind. I think it's really important that we do not allow, this so-called pressure of being a strong, black woman, independent woman, and things like that in the society throughout us, to deprive us of the most important thing, which is a sound mind, and being sound. I want to see everyone, the Bible says that I hope that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospereth. I want to see both. I don't want to see someone, being prosperous, and being in a bad state of mind. I want to see a case where we have women that are both successful, and prosperous, and also, have peace of mind.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Any final thoughts from you, Kemi?
Oh, yes. So, I first want to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much for joining us. For everyone that's been watching us, thank you so much for listening to us. I think that the last thought that I have today, I just want to talk about love. You see, I think that there is a misconception that because we automatically call ourselves Christians that we have love in our hearts. But the truth is that love is something that is cultivated. Think about the soil, right? Think about how you fertilize it and you put just a little bit of light, just a little bit of water, just a little bit of everything. You have the perfect soil to cause something to grow. We can teach values all we want for our children, but think about the children that come out from a perfect home, right? But somehow the heart of one is damaged. The heart of the other is cultivated in love. You understand what I'm saying? So it does not matter, like for Emmanuel just said, you can be strong all you want. If you're so heartbroken, if your heart is so broken and the condition is not good, it makes no sense. And then darkness floods your heart. You can be a very strong black anything, strong white anything, strong society, but when love is lacking, you understand, the principles of love remain the same, either we're Christians or not. There are unbelievers that actually embrace the principle of love, and you know that they're doing well in their community, right? What is love if it's not togetherness and the ability to actually lay down our lives and protect the ones that we care about? What is love if it's not what Jesus actually spent his time teaching us what to understand. The entire scripture hangs on just two. Love the Lord and love your neighbor as yourself. So there's a lot of self-love that we preach on social media today, but there's something broken about the way that we think about self-love. Self-love is not the amount of pictures that I can pull and tell you that I'm doing good. It's not in the amount of pictures that you're showing everyone about. There's a lot of brokenness in the heart of people, and don't get tested. See, love can only be cultivated, step by step. Looking at the places where we're heartbroken, working a bit on the forgiveness that people can offer to the people that have hurt you, even the past that you have not recognized properly, the things that did not work out for you, the disappointments that you face, the things that didn't make sense in your life, being able to forgive yourself and make peace with the things that don't work out well, your failure, the things that didn't make sense to you, the things that life threw at you, the afflictions that you had to endure, being able to forgive that and be at peace. You see, love is a whole lot of things. And 1 Corinthians 13 really explains to us what love is. Until we begin to cultivate love, we're only walking with God. Our hearts are just full of darkness. And we can come together as a church, but there is no love and there is no agreement. And that's why we cannot come together as a people to actually protect broken people, to protect the people that come in that do not look like us. I sat down with my son and I said to him, so what makes you feel, how did you think that how have I cultivated you, to be able to stand very proud in your soul, full of white hope? What makes you, feel very confident as a child? My son is 11, he's about to be 12 years old. And he said to me, Mom, it's because I feel protected. You see, love makes you feel protected. The reason why a lot of us can say that we're lovers is because we know that Jesus got our back. What is love if it's not protection? The love that you have for me should make me feel secure. The love that you have, that I feel for the church should make me secure, not like an outcast. My son would not say, he would go to school and be conflicted within himself. He went to school and he did not feel secure or protected by his mom and his dad. You know what would happen? He will begin to show that. The insecurities that we carry comes from because we have never felt protected. And you need to begin to see, allow the people that want to love you, let them come in because they want to protect you. There are well-meaning people in the world. A lot of us have put up walls. You see, we tell ourselves, don't let nobody else in. Today I want to tell you, you need to allow God to use people to love on you. Even if the people in your home, they let you down. How else do you know that God loves you? Not love people, if you do not let people in so that they can show you and correct the path. Love is so important. He said, Mommy, I know because I protect me and you pray for me. This is what allows my son to be confident at school, regardless of if they're white or black. He does not see any of that. When our children feel protected, they feel love. You see, when our husbands feel protected, when they feel covered, they feel love. When our wife, you're a husband and your wife feels less protected by you, it's a whole between her and disturbance. It is so important for us to understand what love means. And this is my final thoughts. Thank you all for having me. God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kemi. So just in summary, from what everybody has said, I can collectively say that, the things that we have basically got out of this is that we should be assertive enough to say, when we don't want to do something and when we want to do something, it is your life, it is your family's life, so you shouldn't let it be dictated by somebody else, because at the end of the day, you're living your life, you're living your truth, and if anything happens down the line, you'll be left alone to sort that out, and not the people who are influencing your decision. So very important to remember also about educating other people, because truth be said, there are some times when people need to be educated about these things, where they're either ignorant or they've come from a different background and so they genuinely don't know. So it's also our responsibility to ensure that, if someone's saying something that's not in line with our values, or that we feel a bit intimidated by or threatened by or not so happy about, that we're in a position to not necessarily like frown upon it all the time, but also if they're coming from a point of view where they just don't know, then we're able to educate them about it, particularly if it's something related to your own culture that they don't understand. Also, respecting each other's values, respecting each other's wants, respecting each other's needs is very important. That's what makes us a community, is because we're all different. We can't all be the same. And sometimes the reason why people clash as well is because of our personalities, they're different. And that is bound to happen. So there'll always be instances where we'll feel like, there are pressures coming from, other people. But we deal with that based on how we respond to those pressures, and knowing that everybody has their own values, their own wants, their own race, their own destination. No two destination is the same. So also to remember that. And also, we all have a goal. And your goal might be different from someone else's goal. So just to remember that. So we've come to the end of our session today. I want to thank our guest speakers for joining us. I also want to thank the people who sent in their questions. Thank you very much. I hope all of your questions have been answered. And we look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, see you later.